part 2 with Ian. We are now going to talk about training. Obviously, you guys had a lot of questions on training. I had some as well. Ian's now a coach, and it's Veld coaching, isn't it? Which means field in Dutch. There we go. See, I remembered that. He told me that at the
Do we dare
pairs
mention
race.
that?
The pairs race?
Yeah.
The time I let Ian beat me. The 2 Ians. Oh, God. I've got a new partner this year, though, because mine sacked me off. So he's moved to Australia. So they are going down. Are you going to train for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
He started. Altitude camp. Right, so for a cross racer who's specifically looking to be racing cross like you were and coming into it well, when does training start? When are you like, right, I've got to get my head down now?
Realistically, April.
April? I've only just put my cross bike away. April, well, wow, I didn't expect that.
Finish Feb, take April, majority of April, March off, get back going April.
Wow, and what are you doing then? Just base?
Well, yeah, you'd start off with your base strength, work from the off really. I would say focused, yeah, kind of end of May, beginning of June really, and then cross specific kind of end of July, early August.
Wow, I'm leaving it too late. So in that time, are you sacking off all other racing, or are you trying to mix that in?
I always used to mix in some road and some mountain biking. Have some small goals along the way in terms of keeping focused through the summer. It's very difficult to get back on the bike in April and go, all right, first race in mid-September. So just having small, tangible kind of, whether they're race goals, training goals, just having goals along the way to keep that process.
And did you say you take the whole of March off? You don't ride a bike?
I used to take probably 2.5, 3 weeks completely off.
Wow, what are you doing with yourself that time? Just
normally going somewhere hot to warm up.
Oh, yeah, he's not in a car park in Kent. Are we in Kent?
Yeah.
See, this is how the channel's going to evolve. It's professional riders in a car park. I had Nick Craig and now Ian. So in terms of the base period, how long's that going on for, and are you just like doing zone 2, or do you do anything else?
I used to get bored doing zone 2, so I used to mix it up a bit. So I would immediately go back into the gym, doing 2-3 sessions a week in there, complement that with some strength stuff on the bike, like your stomps, your overgeared sprinty stuff, with your zone 2 for a period of time. But I'd also throw in some, maybe zone 4 kind of strength efforts in there as well, just to complement the gym work I was doing, and probably 4 to 6 weeks of that.
And is that, do you mean by strength work on the bike? Are you talking like torque, low cadence stuff?
Yeah, so strength in the gym, very different to strength on the bike. Like the torque numbers we can produce on a bike is nowhere near putting 100 kilos whatever on your back. So
yeah,
2 sort of kind of separate things, but yeah, when we talk about strength on the bike, it's that 40 to 60 low cadence, pretty high towards threshold sort of power that we're looking towards.
Do you think the torque stuff helps with like thick mud? This is for me, because I have such a high cadence that when I get in that thick mud, it's like, oh, this really hurts.
Yeah, so there's hardly any good research about doing low cadence work, but I think we all know that when we do it, we feel good from doing it, and whether it's just opening up your power band, your power range of RPM. So if you tend to struggle once your cadence drops, say, below 80, you see a drop off in your power output. If we can work kind of that 40 to 60 range, that maybe your power can stay higher above 70. And so in that thick mud, you want to go in with a high cadence, but naturally it kind of begins to drop as you begin to struggle. You can only go down the gear, you don't want to change gears too much because you can't press on the pedals as much as you change gear, that kind of thing. So yeah, just increasing that band that you're comfortable with, I would suggest, is probably a good thing.
And for riders, obviously when you were doing your base, you'd have been doing like 15-20 hour weeks. You didn't do anything mad like I see like some of these pros doing like 30 hours. Did you do that ever?
Yeah, here and there. I mean, you got nothing else to do, George.
Just going, Dale, I need some time off work. Ian told me to do a 30-hour training week. God,
But you'd be very focused, so you'd get fit. I think the biggest mistake I see is people take a break, get really super motivated in that first week back. They try and smash out 25 hours, put themselves in a box, and then struggle on for the next part of the training block. So you want to get fit before doing those, and it just 1 or 2 training blocks through that summer where you really kind of overdo it. So I used to go to Andorra or the French Alps and stay at altitude, and those weeks where you're kind of almost like living like a monk because there's nothing else to do at altitude, doing those really big weeks.
And you coach riders from like all levels, so I know we're probably not allowed to name drop, but I've heard that you have a world tour rider, and you've also got like your day-to-day athlete, like bit more like my level, that have jobs, stuff like that. So what do you suggest base looks like for someone that has like 6 hours? How does that work for them? Do they still do in zone 2 or? Yeah,
so this is the big thing that perhaps amateurs make the mistake of trying to train like pros. So there was a lot.
She's trying to dig me out here. They're looking at me saying, this is you.
So there's a lot of stuff surrounding Zone 2 recently, like lots of videos being made around it and top coaches talking about it. And ultimately we're training to stress the body, to cause a physiological adaptation from the body. So you're fit enough to do an hour Zone 2 and almost like not stress the body. So how much are you gaining from that? I don't know, probably not that much. So when you've got the opportunity to do a longer ride, stick to Zone 2 then. So if you've got a long ride on a Saturday and you can do 3-4 hours, stick to Zone 2. The big mistake I see is amateurs going out on their long ride, smashing it up every climb, going into different energy systems, taking 10 minutes to come back to that fat burning zone, Zone 2.
Del Boy, when I say we're going out for a Zone 2 ride, Del Boy will come out with his chunky tyres on, and his heart rate is like 170 on his whoop, and he's like, yeah, my day strain's telling me to go to bed. Poor old boy. But he says if he can't keep up. So I sort of get that.
Yeah.
It's
time for an e-bike?
He's got an e-bike, but he don't use it. He's too big time for that. He's preparing for a comeback. And then after that base period, then what are you doing then? Like threshold work, stuff like that, trying to build your FTP?
Yeah. So normally that first proper block of work, I would want to, perhaps if I've highlighted an area of weakness in an athlete or an area of weakness in myself from the season just gone past, that's a really good time to, you're fit, you're ready to work. I don't know what a weakness might be for a certain rider, maybe above threshold work, and I'd probably choose that opportunity to work on that. Continue with that strength work off the bike, continue with that base topping up. It's almost like keeping plates spinning with your different energy systems and your training zones, and yeah, you don't want to let the endurance just completely fall off a cliff. So yeah, introduce maybe something that you struggled with and try and improve that in the end of it.
That's interesting, because the way I've always looked at it is like, I think because you see people would be like base, build, speciality type thing. So you've gone from like base, and you might be doing then like over threshold stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's a
I
weakness.
think
That's interesting.
The whole traditional phase plan was a little bit kind of thrown out of the water a few years ago, with some good research to suggest that it didn't actually really matter what order you did stuff in, as long as you did it all, and then kind of going into your goal event got that bit right. The last 4 to 6 weeks is the real key to kind of peaking in that goal kind of scenario. So yeah, I mean, the World Tour rider, he came to me 3 years ago, and his big problem was the explosiveness, those race winning moves. Almost the very first block back, he was doing maximal kind of 31 minuters. He was obviously a big engine to handle that, but yeah, it just goes to show kind of don't necessarily need to be that traditional build.
And what about if someone is trying to like build their threshold? Is it important for cross having a high threshold? Because there's people that beat me, and I'm like, I sort of I look on Strava, all right, at people's numbers because I'm sad like that. And there's a certain bit you can go on and you can work out roughly what their FTP is.
Yeah.
And the same for Ben. I know he's got a lower threshold than me, but will beat me in a race. So is it not? Is it important? Like, is it just a number? What do you think?
I would have said cross is one of the disciplines where you can get away with not having a super high threshold compared to perhaps others. It's not like trying to do a race with a 20-minute climb in it where threshold is probably going to be king at that point. So you can get away with it. The big thing is, like, so you have your threshold, and then above that we call the functional reserve capacity above it. So the higher you push your threshold, that system squeezes. And that system is really key for cyclocross, those repeated top end efforts. And so it's almost a bit of a balancing act of getting that threshold high enough, but keeping that capacity big enough to cope with cross. So it's always a bit of a juggling act, and kind of that's why you end up with your, I'm a time trialist, because they've got a high threshold but they can't sprint for toffee, and vice versa. Someone might say, I'm really punchy but can't do a time trial. And so their capacity is probably a bit too big, so they need to work on threshold, and vice versa. So,
and then after that, so like the last little bit, you start to get specific with cross.
Yeah.
What's the Ian Field go-to session is what we want to know. What's going to make me win national champs? No.
I would have said ultimately the best session for cross is going out there, setting up a little 4 or 5 minute cyclocross course, mixed terrain, doing some skills and drills, and then finishing off with your race pace efforts when you're a little bit fatigued from doing your skills and drills, and bash them out on a proper little cross circuit. That's what I used to do, local woods to where we are now, just make up a little 4 or 5 minute circuit and just end each race pace effort just absolutely on your knees, recover, go again.
Right, that's ruined all my training. I completely stopped doing any of that when I stopped using a coach, because the problem for me is it's hard to push yourself when, like, there's not a number.
Right.
I'm very number driven. Like, you know, when you're just whacking it around a circuit, when it gets hard and there's nothing to chase, you're like, I might ease off a bit.
But so I fully understand that. So get someone to train with.
Yeah.
Ben, perhaps. So I used to train with a guy who was nowhere near my standard, and so I would have to do like 5 laps to his 4 or something like that. But also we made like a private segment on Strava, and so we all had our lap times. It obviously changes hugely with conditions, but like, do your first race pace and go, well, I did 5 laps or whatever in 4 minutes, whatever, and then try and beat that or get as close to it as possible. So it's still kind of numbers based.
So you've done a lot of that. Like, I've seen the Palsaus and Bingo. Is that how you pronounce their name?
Yeah.
Palsaus and Bingo. Their guys are out, and I always just thought, they're just doing that for the Instagram shot, them cutting out the woods.
Wednesday afternoons in Belgium, the woods are full of cross riders every Wednesday afternoon. All the teams get together, all the Dutch get together, and it's what I described. It's skills and drills, do some starts, do some sand practice, do some running drills, and then whacking it race pace.
Right, that's where I'm going wrong. The reason why I stopped doing like the group sessions as well is because I like to be in bed at 9 o'clock and they finish at like 9. I like to be in bed at 8:30.
I would say it is difficult with a job because you get home, it's already dark. It's difficult to fit those sessions in. Obviously a lot easier when you've got a Wednesday afternoon free to go and do it, that kind of thing. So Dowboy, give him Wednesday afternoons off.
Not a chance. Right, so what did like a typical race week look like for you? Actually, what I want to ask before that is, you're coming into it, are you trying to peak in September knowing that maybe national champs?
The classic problem that I always used to have was I'd be racing from 1st of September to end of February, and then those pesky mountain bikers coming in, Liam Colleen, Grant Ferguson, trying to beat me just on that one day at the beginning of January. So it was difficult kind of balancing that, but more often than not I would just try and pick out, I knew I couldn't compete week in, week out against the big boys getting those top 15s, so I'd pick events that suited me and that I was up for, and I would try and peak for those, and around those put in the training.
And then how would a typical race week look? Are you racing like double weekends pretty much all?
I tried not to in my career because it was tough going to do those week in, week out, and keep the progress through the season for me. So perhaps race on a Sunday, Monday calf ride, rollers, whatever. Almond croissant.
Nice.
Tuesday, probably 3-4 hours, maybe some kind of sweet spot, zone 3, maybe some overgeared, whatever I felt I wanted to work on that week. Wednesday, maybe an hour and a half in the morning, cross session in the afternoon. Thursday, probably 2-3 hours with some motor pacing behind the motorbike, some sprints from the motorbike, 20/40s, that kind of thing. Friday, day off. It was always a day off for me. I just loved having Fridays off for some reason. And then like an activation ride on a Saturday.
Yeah, I'm a Fridays off man, because I've got, we have to, after work we don't do a food shop on a Friday, all exciting stuff for me and the wife. So when I used to have a coach and it'd be like 3 hours on Friday, like, eh? What? But for the riders that want to just, do you have any riders that have said at the beginning of the season, like, national champs, I want to win it? Do you tell them to, like, right, you should probably pick other goals, because if it gets to that and you fall, if you fall ill or something, it's sort of race over?
Yeah, it's difficult having that one ultimate goal. Can work one or two ways, like putting that much pressure on one event. So much can go wrong in a cross race, like punctures, mechanicals, colds this time of year, etc. So it is difficult. I would like them to pick like a number of goals that are well spaced out, that you can achieve that goal, come back down from it, build back up, achieve another goal. The worst case scenario is when someone goes, I've got this race, and then like 4 weeks later I've got this other race, and it's like, oh, that's going to be a struggle to like hang on to top form for those 4 weeks. And it's a bit too close to come back down, go back up sort of thing. So
how long would that take for a rider, do you think? What's like the minimum time you'd need? Talking of colds, me and Ian are both going to have one after this. My hands, look at the colour of my hands. I'm so sorry. Del Boy, we need to upgrade the studio as well. It's like 0 degrees out here. Absolutely heroic performance from Ian. This is the best performance of his career, just here. Peak.
Cross sets you up for days like today, doesn't it?
No, not that me. I'm shivering.
What was the question?
Sorry. What was the question? About how long between peaks?
So if you have one event, I probably kind of 6, 7, 8 weeks later would probably be like optimum, but you obviously can't choose when races are in the calendar and which ones suit you. So yeah, around about that would be good.
And then once you have peaked, your taper off, when does that start? Week before?
Around about 10 days. I would say for a pro 10 days, for an amateur less, just because normally they've got kind of less load to come down from, if that makes sense. So if you average 10 hours a week, you might come down to doing 5-6 hours a week, but yeah, you don't need to come down as much as if you've been doing 25 hours a week, if you know what I mean. So yeah, depends on the athlete, depends what they've been doing, but yeah, 7 to 10 days.
And then are you dropping volume and intensity in that time? Keeping intensity high, dropping volume down?
He already knows.
I do sort of know. I've obviously been coached, and I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to all that stuff. So keeping intensity high, dropping volume.
Keep the same intensity. Just one thing I like to do, those final few key sessions, just finish like you got one more set in you or one more sprint in you. Don't completely empty the tank. That work should have been done previously. So kind of that, maybe that Thursday before or something, just finish feeling like I'm ready. Like I got a little more to give. Like this isn't where the medals are handed out.
And then race day nutrition, what did you have? Did people, I always hear this eggs and rice, and I see people, you weren't an eggs and rice person, were you?
No, although probably just as disgusting.
What did you have? Oh, here we go.
My missus is going to see this. She used to almost gag at me doing it. Cold rice pudding out the tin.
Oh no, that's
Oh,
I have
okay,
that.
good.
Yeah. If I can't get hold of oats, that's what I have.
Yeah.
See, I'm an oats man, and people are always like, "That's too heavy," blah blah blah. But I just like eating oats. But if I can't, I'm cold rice pudding.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to be like shot in raw eggs or something. Raw eggs gets me going, like a bit of protein.
No, so I used to struggle with nerves a lot, and just like anything like super chewy or like anything heavy was just a no-go. So I just like, you can always just
that's interesting.
swallow rice pudding on you.
It's interesting that you got nervous as well, like being at your level. Like I always just thought like the guys at the front are just like, another day where I lap George.
No, I used to get terrible nerves, terrible.
Really?
Like as a youth and junior, I'd be that kid throwing up in the car park, just terrible.
Wow, I did not expect that. I just thought you'd be like, it's just another day at the office sort of thing.
No. In fact, I was almost more nervous for the races that I knew I could win, like national championships and national trophies. And the bigger races I just used to try and see as like an opportunity to show like how good I was and how far up like the international field I could get. So it was almost like racing on two levels for me.
And then in terms of off the bike work, running and gym, are you a fan?
Running specifically, yes. And gym, yes. Like it's pretty much the only training that all research says that makes you better. So gym work, initially, if you're not used to it, body weighted stuff, and then moving on to actual weights helps massively with cycling efficiency. So yeah, really good. Running, I wasn't a huge fan of going for a 5k. I did a few 5ks and that along the way over the course of my career, a few park runs, but I just liked it doing it in those cross sessions. So make up my little circuit. Even if the climb was rideable or the muddy section was rideable, I would do a circuit where like I'd do 3 race pace kind of things and specifically run a few sections. So it was hurting the legs, getting off, running with fatigue build up, jumping back on, pushing away, and just being specific with it, trying to run as quickly as possible.
Are you a fast runner, or is it just because like the boys at the front seem to be running exceptionally fast?
I did see that video.
Like, yeah. Are you fast, or are you just so fit that you can run fast? Do you know what I mean?
So I think this is maybe one thing that I've watched a few of your videos lately, and I'm like, like a lot of running. So a lot of the best, fastest running I did in races was just purely when I was my fittest. And so it was almost just like you were fresh when you get off the bike, and you could just almost do it as a running interval, jump back on, and it was almost like you weren't too affected by it. But I was a fairly good runner. One thing I would say is lean forward.
Lean forward? Why? What am I?
You're like running upright.
Chest up? I'm putting my chest out for my wife who's filming me.
So you watch that video, like Dan Barnes did it really well, where he jumped off and really like leans into the running, because ultimately running is falling over but your legs are catching you. So lean forward into the running.
If I topple over at my next race
With a bike on your shoulder,
just face plant down in the floor.
as long as your legs keeping up, you should be all right.
So if my legs don't keep up,
Yeah.
it's game over. And I asked Nick Craig this, what do you believe the most important CX skill is?
Oh, probably line choice and balance.
I thought you were gonna say like, got to hop the hurdles.
No, almost everyone does that now. No, I'd have said line choice, flowing, saving energy, getting through sections faster than other riders by not using as much energy is absolutely huge in cross. And then balance, because every corner, every rut, every muddy section, it's all about that body weight, knowing how to control the bike. Yeah, I think that just adds up huge.
A rider that is looking to focus on cross, if they want to have another discipline in the summer, what do you think's best for cross, road or mountain bike, in your experience?
In my experience, this is going to be sat right on the fence. A mix of the two, which is what I did, was I would use the road racing because they're longer. Do those, I used to do a few Premier Calendars, as they were called then, the National Series road race events. Longer, high speed, that endurance, that strength that you need, the hilly events. But then the mountain biking for that explosive training, the technical skills. The big thing about mountain biking, like if you can do a mountain bike race, you're never going to turn up to a cross race and be scared by anything. Whereas when you come from just doing road, you might turn up to a cross race and see a drop or something and be like, ooh, can I even ride that? Whereas when you've been mountain biking at Tong, you turn up to cross and you're like, well, it's simply how fast I can do this rather than can I do it. So I'd say a mix of the two.
Mix of the two. Oh, well, that's it. I'm going to have to do both next year now. Was there anything you'd done in training when you were training that was like massive, like you thought, wow, this is next level, like altitude? I hear so many pros, they're like, I go on altitude camp and I come back, I'm like a hero. Like, is there anything you've done and you were like, wow?
I think altitude's a bit of a funny one. Like, it definitely helps with performance at altitude, but when you come back, mixed reviews. So I was a pretty good responder, which is why I did it almost every season. But it doesn't really work for everyone. Like, some people come back with no real difference, no huge change. I would say personally, heat training was pretty good.
Training? What, for winter?
Yeah, so heat training makes you better at all temperatures, so not only at heat. So it was something I did for the pairs, because
oh my god, for a pairs race, he's peaking. He's doing heat work.
I only had 5 hours a week approximately to train, and so even during those really hot weeks in the summer, I went on Zwift, no fan, shut garage door, and just overheated for an hour. And on race day, it wasn't particularly warm, but it was warmish, but genuinely, like, I didn't feel any sort of temperature, like, and you just become more efficient at all temperatures.
Right, fans are going in the bin. I'll be doing a Zwift race later, I'll pass out. Dying. But honestly, massive thank you for coming on and making this video. Top link in the descriptions are going to be Ian's coaching company, which is Instagram, Veld Coaching. Is it Veld Coaching on Instagram?
Yeah.
And then Veld Coaching is the website.
Yep.
So check him out. Are you taking on riders at the moment? You're expanding.
We are expanding, so we've got a couple of coaches working now with us. So I'm pretty much fully maxed out, but I do have coaches working for me under my guidance. So yep, expanded.
Oh, he's getting big time now. So make sure you head over to Ian's Instagram, give it a follow. If you want some coaching off Ian, he knows his stuff. He's like top rated coach in the UK basically, aren't you?
By you?
by me. By the metric of he's got the best riders. That's the metric. Massive thank you for coming on and doing that. Sorry it's so cold. I'm absolutely frozen.
No
but
problem.
Absolute legend for doing that. And I hope you enjoyed the video.